Hi, welcome to 10th round recap of the candidates tournament. As the tournament's approaching the finish line slowly but surely, it gets very tense. And as it happens with every candidates tournament that I have seen, towards the end, the desperate people are getting more desperate. Already we are entering the stage where some people are losing a mathematical chance of a victory, and those who still have that chance are going all out, no matter the color, and are trying to rack up some wins in the end. This gives opportunity to their opponents, and so inevitably the games are going to be much more open. And that's what we had seen today. In four games that we had, 3 of them were very open and violent fights. Only Jani, who had the white pieces, was able to just calmly control the game, and not much happened there. But in 3 other games, really the unexpected happened, and everybody going for a win there. And inevitably, if both players are playing for a win and ready to take many risks, some really bad things are going to happen. So stay with me and let's take a look at the game one by one. First, let's get the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Timur out of the way. Very important game for Jan, as he's leading the tournament, approaching the finishing line. Of course, he wants to play very solid, he wants to play very well, and he did so. He played the Catalan, maybe trying to play for a win a little bit without risk, and he went for this main variation where Radjabov played once again this b5 system, the one where they sacrifice the pawn eventually after a4 and ab, and Radjabov lost this position against Magnus Carlsen with the black pieces, and Jan himself played this with black and also lost against Wesley so recently. So this line is under some pressure, but Timur showed that he believes in it, and Jan tried something. Got some small plus perhaps somewhere here, as he was trying to collect this pawn, but Timur had it all under control, and after takes, pawn is weak, but it wasn't easy to win it. Actually here, after 95-96, there was an interesting moment, and had the tournament situation been different, I think Jan would have done something else than queen e4, which is a very solid move. Here, I guess Jan already looked on the board of Fabiano, who was his main competitor at this point, and saw that Fabi is doing quite badly, so there's no need to do something crazy. But if he had to, I think he would have very likely found the move bishop b7, and that is an interesting one. You allow this balance here of 2 pieces against rook and the pawn, but very likely you'll get queens off, and then when you trade the queens, the b pawn is kind of very annoying, and white doesn't run much risk here. With the rook against 2 knights, 2 knights usually are not going to pose much dangers, because even if you trade everything and black will remain with 2 knights, you can even give up a rook and position with king against the king and 2 knights as a draw. So whenever you have a rook against 2 knights, you always have that extra security that you can, in the end, give up a rook. So you have to do it carefully, because there was a recent game between Hare Krishna and Maksudlu, where Maksudlu with white did just that, gave up a rook, and then black had 2 knights left, and if you still have a pawn left, it could be lost, so you have to watch out for that. Anyway, the point is, this was a risk-free endgame advantage for white incoming, and if you go rook to c7, then there is another trick, bishop e4, and if queen e5, there's this bishop f4 skewer, and again this material imbalance is kind of in white's favor, as also the h7 pawn is falling. So interesting option, which was of course a little risky, so not surprisingly Jan didn't see the need, and rightly so. He is 1.5 point ahead of the field at this point, so just no need to do anything crazy. 1.5 point after this round, not before. So yeah, here he just allowed the trade, and it was just a draw. Much more interesting things are happening on 3 other boards. We've got a very instructive game in the Italian opening between Duda and Fabiano Caruana. As Fabi clearly wanted to push for a win, he really has to rack up some wins, and Duda was last placed in the tournament, having lost a couple of games recently. Fabi was definitely eager to somehow punch with the black, but as I already was worrying for Fabi, he's not in a great shape any longer. After he lost to Naka, he is not enjoying himself. And Duda, he's losing games, but these players are still very good players. You can lose 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, but you are who you are. You can still calculate, you can still think. And in this risky structure, black goes f takes e6, and as long-term weaknesses, we got trade for bishop against the knight. White has to deal with the pressure on the f file and some kind of x-ray along the diagonal. But the knight on f3 is very firm. It can be supported by the other knight, and white has ideas of his own with b5 and d4. So black should also be careful. And here, in fact, critical moment happened. It seems like the game is just about to begin. Rook f6 very logical. You want to double, triple, quadruple on the f file, but not this way, because after rook f6 only b5 is very annoying. No, normally you want to bring the knight to e7 to g6 or to b8 to d7. Certainly not to a5 or d8, which is also a weird square. But here after knight e7, you've got an issue. You taking queen b7, suddenly hitting the rook and the pawn. And the rook cannot leave because the bishop is hanging, and if you protect the rook, I'll win the pawn. So that's not good, and knight e7 not good. Knight d8 is a bit odd because the rook now is blocked. And knight a5 that Fabi played in the game is perhaps the worst option of the ones available. I think knight d8 would still be better, because after knight a5 now the problem is much more strategic, much more long term. The knight is simply out of the game. The c6 square is controlled by this pawn, c4 by this pawn, and the b3 square will be controlled by a piece, either queen or a rook, and the knight will not see the light for a long time to come. And what's important, the action is happening on this side of the board, and there white has a piece more. He'll have a knight, two knights facing off against the rooks and the queen here, and the bishop will also bring the rook, if necessary the queen at some point, and white will just have more pieces on the king side, while black will be sitting there with the knight on a5. So not a good position for Fabi at all. And here also he's got an issue that after d4, g3, the queen is kind of trapped, so he has to move the rook away, and another loss of tempo there for Fabi, and just a very unfortunate position. And here we'll see Duda just taking control, going d, and h4, opening the g file, because it's not about who has the rook there right now, it's about who has more pieces there potentially. And very quickly white's going to bring the rook here, and the two knights are already ready to start attacking the king here. And in the meantime, knight on a5 is still stuck here at the edge of the board. So this position is kind of winning for white, and it's just a matter of conversion already. Duda did that pretty all right. He had a strong shot here, knight e6, tactic, take. Now this is easy, he saw that. Queen h5 is going to be checkmate. But what he missed after rook g8 is a very strong move, queen f3. We intend queen f6 check. If you take again, this is going to be checkmate. And if you take here, then you've got intermezzo check and protecting the knight. And after king moves, then you take back, and you are winning in this position with the white pieces. So a forced win there, missed by Duda, but he eventually got there anyway, as Fabi was just about to bring the knight to c5. Now Duda prepared a very nasty little trick here with knight to h7. Boom. If rook g3, knight f6, queen trade, suddenly game over, as this is just checkmate. And so after knight h7, Duda got to trade a pair of rooks, and now queen f3 is a big problem that Duda was threatening and Fabi was unable to defend from. To rook f6, f4 is very strong. Now if ef, we've got queen f3, and if rook f4, we've got knight e6. So everything works out for Duda, and the rest was smooth. Knight gf3, a very simple retreat, but the bishop is going to get collected. Now a few more tactics followed. I'll show you because they're very nice. Duda played knight d3, and here he could do something normal, but he played rook a2, very creative. Queen d3, you would think, why not? But there is rook a8. Now if king h7, you've got knight g5 there, discovery on the queen. And if king g7, queen g2, suddenly it's not so easy for black at all, because king f7 is going to be met by a fork. King here by checkmate, here also by some sort of checkmate. And rook g6 is met by a beautiful tactic, queen g6, knight e5. So very nice tactic that Duda had seen all the way here up front with the move rook a2. A very cool way to convert the game. And in the end also Fabi enters the endgame, but the problem is that the h-pawn will always stay alive, and with the knight and the pawn, all the other pawns are actually quite weak and they're all gonna fall, but the h-pawn will remain on the board. And the finish was nice. Duda allowed Fabi to capture the h-pawn, but that's because he'll have this fork in the end. So after check here, it's gonna be fork, and he'll win the rook. And as Fabi saw, the h-pawn will stay alive, and the king will enter, the knight will enter. It will just be checkmate against the king here. Fabi just resigned and ended his suffering in this game. A very, very good game by Duda, showing that he's able to bounce back after a horrible start in the middle of the tournament. And for Fabi, he might even see his second spot slipping away, as tournament is unfolding, and he is not looking good in the last few days, but he is a resilient fighter, so probably will bounce back. Now let's jump straight into the next game. That is the one between Richard Rapport and Ding Liren. Now Ding Liren, as I told you already in my recap previously, he started winning games, and after his previous win he was eager to fight in this one. And exciting position we got. Rapport played the Spanish, but a sideline with d3, and now bishop g5. Now whenever you do this bishop g5 pin, it's extremely double-edged. What happens usually is that black will, at some point, he did that much later, play g5, and this weakens his king side. So if he castles here, the king is a little weakened, but the bishop on g3 is on sort of the outside. It's on this kind of trapped in this corner of the board, not contributing to the central squares here, but it is still a defender of the king. So it's a question how bad the bishop on g3 is and how weak the king side is for black. Sometimes black starts attacking because he can push these pawns forward. Sometimes white starts attacking in the center, or even sometimes on the king side. So very, very interesting double-edged positions. Meanwhile, Ding also grabbed some space on the queen side. So we've got a very murky position and also a very murky play. Now a3, very mysterious move, preparing perhaps before. And I like this very strange maneuver. Rook b8 followed by rook b7 and followed by rook c7. I've never seen this kind of thing happen. I've seen it in some Sicilians actually, but it's very odd here, very creative. And Rapport also played original chess, I must say. So he gave a pawn and now went for f4. Also d4 is possible. Here also it's possible to go f5, cut out the knight somehow a little bit from the game, but opening the file is also logical. And yeah, this is an interesting structure. Now often the king is super safe on h2, but I don't know, just a very confusing position. Even the computers are not sure what's going on here. Material is equal. King is kind of safe, although if one day the queen will reach the h file, it's going to be checkmate. But the king is for now quite safe. This king is in the center, but there are some pieces around it. It's very hard to say what's going on. It's roughly balanced, but nobody knows. Bishop f7, a nice tactic. If takes, you take. Discovery there. And after this, here actually the players were repeating moves for a moment, but Rapport, of course, true to himself, is not going to repeat. Played this very creative sack, knight c4, to which Ding reacted very well. He just played the rook to c6, gave back an exchange, gave back a rook for a bishop, and that means here he's got a knight and a bishop against the rook, which is quite a lot. King is a bit weak, but there are some pieces around it. So just a very murky game actually, and it stayed all within balance. Like the players played really well according to the computer all the way until here, and here the computer recommends bishop e7 somehow, queen e7, queen d3, this trade, and a computer suggests that yeah, here things get quite simplified and white's king is safer. He is material down because of the rook against two bishops, but the king is safer as the queen is not going to come here so easily with such an open king, and as white wants to perhaps pin some of the bishops and annoy black on the queen side. It looks like black is unable to convert his material, and this should be around equal, though I must say it does look to me optically that black is doing very well. I would think that black is still better here somehow, but it's not. In any case, Richard played only natural rook c3, but after ab suddenly this endgame where normally white is up material with the rook against the bishop and the pawn, but suddenly he's got an issue. The king is kind of stuck here. The bishop is also stuck a little bit and is not really where it belongs. So if the bishop was somewhere here and the king would just enter the game, now white would be the one pressing. But as the situation is as it is, the b pawn is suddenly a very dangerous passer, which is hard to stop. And Rapport was able to give back the exchange and have opposite colored bishops, and it looks like a draw. The king should just be in time, but there are some issues, and actually Ding is winning here because he's able to just advance. And if Richard would try to defend like that, which is a very natural thing to do, now suddenly white is going to lose this because white is stuck to defense here. Black has a simple plan. He will push h5 and then h4, and with two pawns he's going to just queen one of them, while this bishop is controlling these two pawns on this diagonal. So kind of a very unfortunate loss for Richard in an endgame, which you would think looks holdable, but somehow it's not. And yeah, he tried to go active, but Ding just b2 was also possible, but king d3 is very clean, just collect and then come back and b2. and there was nothing to do. And again, you can go passive, but the same fate awaits you. It's even worse without the e pawn. Collect this pawn, and then at some point push the h pawn, and then push the g pawn. Then bishop cannot control both the pawns. It will be deflected by one, and the other will promote. So yeah, it's a crazy game with both players playing for a win. It's extremely creative chess, and very little mistakes according to the computer. But it was Richard who made the mistake and lost the game. So great chess from Ding, and he's there. He already won 2 games, already sharing the second place. He needs a miracle in the end, but he is capable of that. So we are going to keep an eye on that. And now let's look at the final game, which was also played by our favorite streamer Hikaru Nakamura, who faced Alireza Firouzja, who is a brother of our other favorite streamer. So kind of a matchup between 2 friends basically. And Alireza, through his prep in the tournament, plays the Najdorf once again. Opening he prepared for the event, a very ambitious opening and one I'm a big fan of. So I was excited to see that. And here I recommend 2 different systems on my course. I recommend bishop e7, bishop e6, and also bishop e7 castle, and then knight c6. But Alireza springs a rare line with knight c6 first. And after bishop c4, it goes bishop e6, delays the development of the f8 bishop. Very interesting system. Hikaru plays knight d5, rook c8, takes, and here a very surprising move. 5 minutes spent by Alireza. He's got more time here and a lot of confidence as he wants to win this game. Now, I know from experience, and this is a really remarkable thing about the Candidates tournament compared to others, where in other tournaments, players usually look at the standing and take decisions dependent on that. But in this tournament, only first place matters. And so everybody who's got a mathematical chance and especially who won the game at some point, they are all so ambitious and so ready to believe in miracles that they always try to win. And as long as there is a mathematical chance to win the tournament, they really go all out. And Alireza clearly thought if he wins today, he's on 50%. If he wins tomorrow, he's on +1. It means he beat Nepo, so Nepo will be only on +3 perhaps. And then he would just be a point behind. And then with 3 rounds to go, he would be able to catch him. And yeah, so Alireza clearly was ambitious for this game. And here it showed he just took with the G pawn, which is an epic decision for no reason. He complicated the pawn structure in a very, very risky fashion. Now there is a potential for the f5 square to be weak, and that really happened also later on. So definitely something that Alireza invited upon himself. He would have just taken with the queen, and this position is very, very playable, actually quite equal, because as so often in the Najdorfs, this knight on f3 is very far away from the weak d5 square, and this is the fundamental problem why it's facing in the Najdorfs. This knight is just never getting there, and if it will try to maneuver its way, at some point black will hit it with the center with d5 or even f5 sometimes. In any case, with equality very likely to happen, but Alireza wanted to play ambitious chess and did so with gf, and it was not so terrible if he had played it perfectly, but it was very hard to play. He should have played rook g8 and queen d7 first, according to the computer, and only then knight e7. But it's already very hard, and knight e7 was the wrong plan. After takes and d5, he has gotten a lot of weak light squares and shaky development, and Hikaru played now ambitiously with queen e2. Now that's the beauty of it, that both players are very ambitious, and so the game is going to be just really sharp. Knight f5, I think, is a positional mistake, you could say, because essentially you want to get these pawns moving. You want to push f5 at some point, and the knight is actually in the way, and you don't want to trade the knight because that will just create a monster knight on f5 that will be unopposed. Knight f5 simply I would say a positional mistake. Now Alireza, of course, understands chess very well, but whatever his rationale was for it, maybe he wanted to stop knight h4, but then he could do knight g6 anyway. But in any case, knight f5 was not good, and he suffered from that here later on in the game as well, as he was just it was just in the way. Instead, maybe something. Let's see what it is. Maybe knight g6. Yeah, the computer prefers knight g6. I think is a more natural one indeed. Yeah, and maybe possible to get acceptable position. But here it was all Hikaru, and bishop f8 was not not good. He should have gone a5, still try to make a weakness out of c5 pawn. After bishop f8, he intended b5 knight d4, but this tactic doesn't work, or in fact it does, but white is just happy to fall for it. He's happy to sack an exchange because now this knight is beautiful. And Hikaru didn't hesitate. I really like that. He played very confidently in this game. Just sacrificed that exchange. And positionally now he is winning because he's going to start an attack here, and there are all kinds of tricks also in the mix. The c-pawn is very strong and it's just not working for black after rook d8, rook a1, rook c6, bishop h6. Yeah, rook c6 of course is not very good, but already it's really hard at this point to suggest something. I guess rook a6 was also something he was bothered with. So rook c6, bishop h6, king h8, rook a3, rook is also joining, and after queen b4, there was nothing, but Hikaru after this move can just finish it off with takes, queen h6. It's just forced mate, because if rook g8, just rook g3, you trade off the last defender, and queen g7 is going to be checkmate. Queen cannot come and rescue, while rook also cannot come to the rescue because of the f6 pawn falling. So just GG here because of the king h2. Yeah, queen f8 not possible. Queen g7 is just coming to town. A beautiful win by Hikaru, but certainly aided by Alireza. Of course, it looks like Alireza lost it, but of course that's how it is. You take a risk with GF, and either you are a genius or you lose, and then you have no one but yourself to blame. Normal situation, again, typical candidates game. It wouldn't happen in, I don't know, Norway chess or something like this, or Vaikanze, where you've got still a lot of things on the line. Second place is a decent result always in these events. Third place as well, and fourth place is better than fifth. There's either different prize money or rating is very important always. So there is always that, but here the difference between the first place and the second is so large that you have to really sacrifice your EV, do the craziest things just in the hope of winning. Excuse me. Just this GF is just too much for me. And yeah, anyway, it's time to end the recap. I spoke way too much and need to take a drink. Hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I forgot to advertise my chessbook course with a pro membership. Do check it out. There, my voice is very fresh because I first recorded the game of the day for my chessbook recap and only did the YouTube video. I look a lot fresher there. And there are also some puzzles prepared for you that you can see now on the screen, I guess. And do subscribe to my channel, because 69% of the viewers are not subscribed, and this is unfair. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next round recap. Bye bye.